commemorate the 70th anniversary of Soviet deportations from Lithuania, the Balzekas Museum of Lithuanian Culture is hosting Hope and Spirit, a series of exhibits and events dedicated to the hundreds of thousands of Lithuanians and the millions of people from all Soviet-occupied nations, of all ages, religions, nationalities, and races, who suffered persecution once through forced exile, imprisonment, torture, and genocide, and again through the denial, minimization, and suppression of their victimization and suffering. On June 14, 1941, after the first Soviet occupation of Lithuania during World War II, thousands of innocent Lithuanian civilians, including infants, children, and the elderly, were forcibly rounded up, packed into cattle cars, and deported to the Soviet Gulag, Stalin's system of prisons and forced labor concentration camps. These prisons span the vast Soviet territory from the Arctic Circle to the Bering Sea. The deportations would continue for 2 decades. Only after the dissolution of the Soviet Union would their extent and brutality become known.
Well, these exhibits are very important. We learn from history, and the young people have to know the suffering and the tragedies that happened in the past. This type of exhibit not only brings back past memories, but gives us inspiration how important it is to have freedom and peace throughout the world.
The exhibit itself is composed of several different pieces. One of them is the series of historical posters that's in the background here. These posters were provided by the Genocide Museum in Vilnius, Lithuania. The sequence of posters is called The Chronicles of Violence, and it details the mass deportation and killing of Lithuanians by the Stalinist Russian forces starting in 1941. We also have a large number of historical artifacts from Siberia. We have 224 photographs from Siberia, 157 letters that were sent from Siberia, and 71 envelopes. We also have reminiscences that were written by individuals who were deported, they're handwritten reminiscences. We have a set of receipts of material that was sent to people in Siberia to help them survive. And we have very, very rare authentic material from one individual, Elena Yutsute, who was sent to a gulag in Siberia, hard labor camp for 10 years. A number of her authentic material that she brought back from her imprisonment on display here.
A portion of the exhibit is comprised of archival materials from the Lithuanian Research and Study Center in Chicago.
Well, the Lithuanian Research and Studies Center has an extensive archives of Lithuanian material dealing with all aspects of immigration and the experience during the Second World War and after. We have the biggest archives outside of Lithuania involving this material, and it's a heritage which speaks to us, and people have to be aware of it.
On a personal note, why I started my involvement in this project was my great-grandfather, both of my grandfathers, and one aunt died as a consequence of NKVD interrogations. My grandmother, at the age of 71, was deported to Siberia to be a lumberjack. Along with her, 7 other aunts and uncles were deported to Siberia. That's just my family. In Lithuania, hundreds of thousands of individuals were either exterminated or deported. The same took place in similar fashions and other fashions across all of Eastern Europe. The numbers of casualties, people affected, in the many, many millions. Some historians estimate that the deaths caused by Stalin exceed that of that Hitler caused. And the basis for all of this extermination that took place, well, in my family's case, it was very simple. The individuals were guilty of owning small family farms. They were potential political opponents to the new Soviet system, so they had to be either exterminated or deported. This was genocide on the basis of political motives.
During the opening of the Hope and Spirit series, a jury children's art exhibit entitled "What My Parents and Grandparents Told Me About Deportations and Life in Siberia" was held at the Balzekas Museum. 52 children from across the United States and Canada participated in this exhibition.
Came to my house and she had like this book and she showed me the picture, and that's how I found out that I wanted to draw it. I drew a kid and a dad, dogs, and dogs were pulling the sled. I drew a picture of Lithuanians being deported to Siberia in animal train cars. And I drew a guard tower with a guard in them, and Lithuanian kids, women, and children, and men behind a barbed wire fence. I drew 2 soldiers and a train going to Siberia, and my poster is called Exile. The soldiers are telling the kid that's laying, that says, he's going to the train. He's mad.
I drew about the first tier, like, of a girl on a cattle train, and in the background you could see other people just outlined in black.
I drew my grandma. When she was young, the Russians came into her home and they wanted to take her, but she ran away just in time and she barely made it.
I drew a picture of my mother's grandfather in Siberia, and there are blood stains on his face, which mean all the bad things that have happened or occurred when he was there. Sadness, fear, longing, pain, and suffering. Then there's sparks of light that mean all the good things and the hope, remembering home, love, and prayer.
Project that I started up has a slightly different name to it, called Hope and Spirit. And the reason we wanted to accent the positive is that many people were able to survive, and it was the human hope and spirit in Lithuanians and other national groups in Eastern Europe that kept them alive at that time. The spirit kept going decade after decade after decade, which eventually then led to the realization of freedom and independence of many Eastern European countries. So it was the resilience of human spirit that we want to celebrate in light of the genocide that took place 70 years ago.
very many years, Lithuanians suppressed their pain and their suffering in their hearts and in their minds because it was not allowed to talk about it. But now the times are changing, and people share their pains and sorrows, and I think it's very important to do that because we have to do everything possible that such events, such history would never repeat itself. It is also important that not only Lithuanians, young Lithuanians, learn about the tragic events. It is also very important that our fellow Americans learn about that, because it seems that many people here in the United States do not know about the horrible things that happened during the Soviet times.
In undertaking this organization of this effort, I was motivated in large part also by imbalance, a historical imbalance. I was born in Toronto and grew up there, and also finished my education in Chicago. I knew about these Stalinist atrocities my entire life, but growing up in North America, the general public was very well knowledgeable and very well acquainted with the atrocities that Hitler had committed. But at the same time, in basically the same geographic location, Stalin's killing machine was working very efficiently and producing casualties that probably outnumber those of Hitler. And what he did is not known. It's sort of empty in the history. I've sort of felt that this is an opportunity for me to try and balance the historical perspectives a little bit.
We came to your opening of the exhibit because we thought it was that important that all the world knows about the problems of Lithuania, as well as they know the problems of Ukraine with their genocide and with other countries that also had a genocide.
Poland shares a number of moments of history with Lithuania. One of these moments is the beginning of the Second World War, when Poland was invaded by Germany from the west and the same month by the Soviet Union from the east. As a consequence, in 1939 and 1940, almost 2 million Poles were deported to Siberia and other regions of the Soviet Union.
We've set up a rather elaborate program with Hope and Spirit almost every week. Besides the ongoing exhibits, there are films, readings, reminiscences, poetry readings, book signings. So there's a very active program through the summer and fall.